Hello everyone, Russell Wright and Sue Bell from Network Empire and ThemeZoom.com. So glad that you could all make it. It seems like pretty much everyone is here. And we deliberated as to whether or not we should have a webinar this close to the actual event, because we know some people are actually traveling to come to the event, which is really excited. I know that Sue and I are extremely excited to see everyone. And I'm actually packing up today to head into Phoenix. It's true, only a few hours away. You know, it is a change, and I'm really ramping up and looking forward to unload all of our deepest, darkest, most powerful SEO traffic and syndication secrets. And it's something kind of liberating and fun with that. So really excited. Today's topic is accomplishing market domination. And you know, it's really amazing. This particular series of concepts is a collaboration between Sue Bell and myself. It's been in the process of development for almost 5 years now. It brings to it all of my experience that I learned from Gluskin Townley in the survey industry for big corporations like Schwinn Bikes and a whole bunch of large companies like that. But I was an intern with you know, some of the guys doing the survey systems where we learned how to do market positioning and all that. It also comes with a lot of information about you know, the buying cycle and the rest. So we'll get into that, and it's really key that you understand that, you know, we have the web rings, the one web ring system, but we also have the pyramid of the pyramid of promotion, but we also have the perpetual downstream traffic system and the perpetual lead magnet machine. So what we have is all of these things kind of come together in this presentation, really.
Yep. And
the way they come together is both lateral and horizontal, vertical and horizontal. We call that horizontal, I think.
Yep.
One of our developers, Sue and Kelly, came up with the term horizontal. We actually have it in our wiki. It's not a real word, but it is important to understand because we are actually helping you fill out both your horizontal empire, stretching hopefully quite extensively out across multiple platforms, and then vertically into your personal brand congruency, your corporate brand congruency, your ISNA, your innovations, and the rest. So we'll just jump right into it rather than just hear me blather on about it, but it's really, really cool stuff. So thanks for joining us, Sue.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm getting so excited.
And like, by the way, of course, as is our norm, if you have questions, I am manning the question desk here, and just jot them in there, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. And, of course, we're going to see you live in just a few days. So we can, you know, if you have anything any more granular, we'll talk to you in person.
Exactly. All right, so what we're going to talk about today combines the slippery slope, which takes your customers from that initial inquiry all the way through to being an evangelist. We're going to talk about how the slippery slope relates to the buying cycle, which we covered last week, but we'll have a review for those who, like me, don't quite remember. We've got, we're going to talk about the different aspects of the sales funnel, and we're going to introduce the purpose of each one of the web rings into the sales funnel with the buying cycle. So in other words, we're going to bring all of these ideas together. So the question of the day is, how is Network Empire market domination accomplished? It's a systematic monopolization of all the conversations surrounding your product or service. So this means that you want to be everywhere. This is ubiquity, right? You want to everything from the very beginning all the way through to the end. You want to be in the middle of all of those conversations, controlling them. And we do that by utilizing our 3 rings, the one feed, and then monitoring how everything is going throughout the entire universe. So today, we're just going to cover the 3 rings. WR1. These are your branded sites. These are the domains that you actually own, and you stick your brand on them so that people recognize and become familiar with their brand. Obviously, that's going to include your money site, but that can also include information sites, trust-building sites, things like wikis and blogs and forums. So anything that's got your brand on it. The WRS one, the S's mean social media, third-party platforms. It's a little bit broader than just social media, but those are the WRS1 ring are those third-party platforms, in other words, the domains that you don't own, but where you have an account and you've also got your brand on it. So you think of that WR1 and the WRS1 as those things where you've got your flag. Then you've got your WR2 ring. Those are domains that you own again, but you don't actually have your brand on them. And then WRS2, the same kind of an idea. You don't actually have your brand on those particular social media accounts. What we often do in the WR2 and WRS2 is we have what we call pseudo-branded, where we've got personas who are activists or evangelists for your company, and they basically take ownership of a blog and a website and a set of social media platforms. They can be real. They can be people who actually work for your company. They don't have to be. They can be completely fabricated. Then we've got the WR3 and the WRS3. Again, the WR3 are the domains that you own. WRS3 are the third-party platforms. And these usually there's so many of them that you don't really have a persona for them. You might have a sketchy persona, which means, you might have a person associated with a blog and a Twitter account, but that can be a lot more free-form when it gets out there. As we actually get into the networks and what we're going to talk about during certification, you're going to see that we do the idea of the WR3 rings is that they link into the WR2 rings. The WR2 rings link into the WR1 rings. Doesn't mean that you can't have a banner on the WR3 ring that links right smack to your money site, but those are going to be probably no follows in the typical banner, so it looks as though you bought a banner on that site. You bought advertising space on that site. It's also really common to have AdSense or some other way so that it looks like those sites are monetized some other how, and it's not so obvious that their entire existence is only to push page rank to the WR2 sites. Okay, so that's a brief overview of the entire WebRing system. Now what we're going to talk about, that review that I promised on the 7-step buying cycle. So it starts with an initial inquiry. Hey, I just found out about Corning touch glass. What the heck is this? And then it goes on to product discovery. You do a couple of Google searches, and you go looking for what people are saying about that particular idea. And then you're like, oh, well, I mean, I already mentioned that it was Corning because Corning's the only one that's got that product out at the moment, but maybe during my product discovery and while I'm looking at what people are saying, I found out that there's actually somebody else that makes a similar touch glass product. So then I can say, wow, well, let me put these two touch glass products up side by side and see what the differences are. Decide what kind of a brand I want, and then within that brand oftentimes there's multiple products. Obviously this depends on the scope of your market.
Okay.
And then
yep, exactly.
Then you're looking for specific social proof. Okay, I've gone and I've picked out this one particular Sony laptop that I'm really interested in purchasing. What are other people saying about it? And then finally, where's the best price that I can actually purchase this? So as I was talking about in the very first slide, if you're looking at market domination, you want to be the platform that people are spending the majority of their time on as they go through all of these different steps. Okay? Now, I'm a technical person. I like to put things into buckets, like, I like everything organized in such and so a way. And so a lot of this presentation talks about sticking things in very particular ways, right? So like I'm going to talk about this particular level of the buying cycle is most appropriately done on this particular level of the WebRing. And the truth of the matter is lines get blurry. Like life is just, it's not black and white.
It's not cut and dry like this, but this is the best we could do.
Right.
It's as simple as possible, as Albert Einstein said, as simple as possible, but not simpler.
and so it's just like something to kind of help you get broad brushstrokes about what it is that you're trying to accomplish on each of these levels of the rings so that things kind of make more sense to you and you go, wow, I really don't need to spend too much time doing X because it's for Y. Or, wow, this is really important because this is actually where people are making a buying decision, and so I need to spend a lot of time on it. So that's kind of like what I'm trying to do in this presentation, is just give you broad brushstrokes about how all of this stuff fits together. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at the slippery slope. Russ, do you want to take the presentation for a moment and talk about this?
Sure. This is something that I created when I was in my office in Hawaii. And the part of the process was helping several clients on the island who were dealing with their sales funnels in the real estate industry and the rest. So I ended up diagramming this on a whiteboard one day spontaneously, overlooking a waterfall in Kauai, where my client's home was overlooking a beautiful location. And it was kind of spontaneous, but I was trying to explain to them the process of generating trust in the buying cycle. And the only reason I ended up creating it and notated is because it actually had such an impact. It was actually a tea company, a fairly large tea company in Kauai, and they actually used this, and they're doing quite well now. But it helped the CEO understand, you know, she had one of those eureka moments, and because of the eureka moment, I decided, wow, I better, you know, do this again, better create a hard copy. So what this really is about why-driven company brands and creating a slippery slope. But this can really represent your technical sales funnel. And generally speaking, we're talking about the psychological process that is the neuro-marketing aspects of what a customer goes through in making a buying decision. And the first one is obviously a first look. And that's what a lot of internet marketers spend their time on, is the gizmos, the widgets, and the distractions. A lot of things that come out, and those aren't bad things, by the way. I'm not saying they're bad. You know, Market Samurai's recent product is the scarcity, you know, countdown timer, which we all know works, and these types of things. These are great things. How do you get your attention? How do you get someone's attention and hold it so that they jump through that hoop, quite literally, which is to give you an email, have some kind of transactional impact. So distraction in an environment that is becoming more and more clustered, where there's only so many pixels on your screen, and there's only so many hours in a day that your customers and potential prospects have. The first part of your whole marketing and branding campaign is to get their attention. In fact, your banners and your one-line zingers and your ISDNA, which is really the first process we're going to take you through live, that's all about making sure that that first look counts, that you have the one pane that jumps out at people that they get that speaks to an entire market, and then they have like blurred vision to everything else. They're zoomed, focused in on your, you know, either your banner or your image or your call to action or your product or service. Okay, and this is called the Irresistible Offer. It helps you a lot with that as well. Okay, how can you in under 5 seconds tell them what you're selling, how much does it cost, what's in it for them, and why they should believe you? Okay, once you have that, you've got them on the first slip. Okay, I'm trying to read this thing. I can't quite see it. Hang on a second. It's been a while. Possible. Opt-in, bookmark, exactly. Right. So that's really your touchstone, which we talk about in the Irresistible Offer. We're going to give you that book, I believe, don't we, Sue, or the PDF maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you slip down the slope into the second look. The second look is, okay, they walk away 50 or 60 feet. Your domain name and your touchstone and your Irresistible Offer smacks them in the head, and their head slides off, and they want to come back for a second look. In other words, they don't forget your domain, they don't forget your offer, you don't blend into the crowd of screaming digital information and or offline competition for their attention. You've gone past what's called the reticular activator, which is the original limbic brain filter, and they're ready to come back. Okay, things like there's all kinds of ways that you can get that, that second look. And once you have them, and you're able to engage them, I like to use videos to do this. Okay. What's sometimes called the video ATM. If you give them a free video or something incredibly interesting that creates distinction and top-level discernment with a touchstone and irresistible offer, for example, ours is the one web ring system, which invariably filters out the people we don't want and gets the attention of the ones we do. They come back for the second look. And then they're trying to figure out, like, what the heck? Okay, I've seen the offer. I'm distracted and thinking about you because it's unique, intriguing. Okay, and then they're going to drill down for believability. And so we'll get into this on a much larger scale within the web rings. That's where they want to believe. This is from
Exactly.
Fox Mulder and what is that show called?
Not Aliens.
Wow, I can't believe the X-Files.
X-Files.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that do want to believe. People want to believe that they're going to get something fantastic for the money. People want to believe that you're honest overall, but there's also a huge amount of discernment now that's happening, and the web makes it incredibly easy to find any problems, scams, or issues, right? So you just want to be aware that they're going to do that. So they're going to drill down, and what they're going to do, and Sue will get into this, they start looking for the social proof. They look for complaints. They look for even things, the why should I believe you aspect of it, which should have been mildly impactful at the first look, now becomes all-consuming. And that's where reputation management, on a wider scale, all of these things actually matter. Brand recognition matters. There's a lot of the aspect of why should I believe you that gets answered contextually, meaning in the golden frame of your website. For example, believe it or not, even a Facebook like box with 50,000 people all smiling and liking, some of them being your friends who are on the page, that does influence why should I believe you. Okay? So there's different levels of contextual. Once you have that, then you're dealing directly with the time to money, the transactional velocity of I believe. But we're actually wanting you to get beyond that point. Getting to the transaction is great, even $1 or greater, or even a penny or greater, some kind of transaction where you get them on a residual. Once they've made the transaction, they believe, and they don't have buyer's remorse. And we want to take it to the point where your customers, where this shifts from sales funnel gimmicks and tactics into I have a message and I want to become an evangelist for your company. All of that's going to be dependent upon your operations department. It's going to be dependent upon, in fact, I just had a big meeting with the client this morning about this topic. It's going to be dependent upon the uniqueness of the products and their distinction and how they're not the same as everything else, whether it's a buyer's club or anything else, okay? So you want to get them first look, second look, then the third look is I want to believe. That's the place you want to get them. You want to get them down 1 through 3 as quickly as possible. And if you do it right, you can get them down in 20 minutes or less. Okay, wow. You can do it. You can stretch it out over time as well into 20 days with video opt-ins, what's called the Video ATM by the Experts Academy. Okay, and that's great stuff. We have great results with that. But you can actually accelerate and compress time if you have a great brand, and if your social proof on the web through 3 and 4 is very prolific. If I look up Sue Bell on the web, I'm going to find nothing but amazing stuff about military industrial architecture, projects, major applications. That's pretty hardcore proof. You can't really fake that kind of stuff, right? That will actually accelerate the process of moving through 1, 2, and 3 for the whole brand. Okay, then there's the final transaction, and if they have results from the product and service, suddenly, which is very, very common for our brand, they start telling everybody, and you almost don't even need to do marketing anymore. So that's where we want your stuff to be able to go, depending upon what kinds of products and services you're dealing with.
Exactly.
It's a license to print money when you understand the connections between branding and brand equity. Does everybody here understand the concept of brand equity? Just chime in if you say yes. Not really. Okay. Brand equity is basically the idea that over time, the stories you do. Okay, great, Steve. Over time, the stories that Sue and I have told with our press releases, that we've told about each other, that our customers, even more importantly, and our testimonials have told to the environment, over time, increase the value of the company in the liquidity of it. And there are different formulas to determine the value of a brand equity. And none of them are very realistic. They're all what Sue calls blue sky in liquidity options. Okay, for example, there's numbers to determine the value of a liquidity event based on the size of your database. But at the end of the day, a good brand with a great reputation, with products that don't suck, you can put this kind of invisible price tag on just the brand recognition. And now you guys know why, because it accelerates the process of 1 through 3 by an order of magnitude. so that you can just focus on for the transaction. And of course there's a dollar value assigned to that. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I'll just let Sue move on.
Cool.
Okay.
So back now
Kevin
to
Sue.
yeah.
Kevin asked a real quick question that's with that slide. Should I just complete
Sure.
point that one?
Sure.
He says, if you have different products selling to different people, then how can you filter this process to funnel people correctly on the website? Yeah, thanks for that question, Kevin. This is something that Sue and I were just talking about this morning. There are many ways to do that. Sometimes you have to have individual sales funnels because the product is different, the core function is different. One of the fastest ways, and you cannot do this in every industry, but one of the fastest ways is to have a general membership login where people access their buying past and history. And so that's a collective thing. And now very few people can do that if they don't have stores that offer, big storefronts. The other thing you can do is make sure that I personally, and Sue, you should answer what you think here. I like to make sure that the individual funnels, if the products are independent, have independent silo landing pages.
Exactly.
And if there's a bundle, I also like to bundle. And here's the interesting thing that Sue and I have talked about a lot. The issue of creating bundles is very different than the issue of creating silo landing pages. So if you don't have the bundles first, then you have to remake a silo landing page and or a cluster or category page later on, or else add that new bundle that's related to multiple products into a single silo landing page. And we're going to talk about that at the event. So
yeah.
jump out of the way.
When you're doing your market research in Kraken, you should take, and we will talk more about how to determine your demographics, but if you've got radically different demographics for your products, then you're going to at least want to move them into different silos and possibly into different websites.
Right.
Like if you look at clothing, you've got boys' clothing, men's clothing, women's clothing, but quite often the woman does most of the shopping. So I mean, just broad brush strokes here, right? Like if you're talking Sears and Penny's and those kinds of places. And so
it's true, yeah.
So most of those kinds of places are going to be more geared toward women. And because that's one person that does a lot of the shopping, they've got one funnel for a lot of those different kinds of things. If you've got a men's specialty store where men are going to be doing the shopping, then that's a little bit easier. But if you've got like men's specialty shopping and women's specialty shopping, then quite often they put those on completely different websites. So you'll see like one company owns 2 different stores like that, and they've got radically different websites because they want different looks and feels, they want different colors, they want different fonts. The demographics are just so radically different. So at the very least, you want to tackle different silos in those conditions and look at, you can do it on different subdomains, or you might even want to brand it entirely differently, which is a very common thing to do. Okay, so then we're coming back to the WR1 ring, and that's actually a really cool example because in your WR1 ring, you can now easily see where you might have multiple money sites. So you've got multiple, let me not get ahead of myself. WR1 ring, in certification, we'll go through this process in great detail, but we've actually got 3 launch phases. You've got the soft launch phase, where we're trying to just get everything pulled together for that initial launch. In other words, I want to be able to have my money site up so that I can take people's money, they can find my products, and then I want to have that initial social media stuff up, and I want to make sure that everything's working, that I can take people's money and that customer service works and all that kind of good stuff. So that's phase 1 in the launch procedure. And we don't go into any of this kind of detail in the regular members area because you're normally just not dealing with that many sites. So, okay, initial soft launch on the WR1 ring. We were talking about privately registered and branded domains. And these are going to be your money sites, your branded blogs, your branded forums, your branded wikis, and your membership sites. So all of those things combine to make the sites that are in your WR1 ring. The kinds of things that we're trying to target, we're basically, when you're in the WR1 ring, you're at the very end of the buying cycle, right? That they've already found their initial inquiry, they've done their product discovery, and what you're focusing on, I mean, it's not that you wouldn't cover step 1 through 4, but what you're really focusing on is helping people determine the correct product, provide specific social proof, in other words, customer testimonials, and giving them the ability to be able to purchase. If you cover nothing else, you have to cover those things on your WR1 sites. Your objectives on these sites is building trust, communicating with your clients or your customers, doing direct marketing, obviously, and the actual sales. Okay, so now let's talk about the third-party platforms that surround those sites. In other words, these are the platforms that have, these are the third-party platforms that are branded, and I didn't say what I thought I was going to say. I love it when that happens. Hang on just a second. Let me catch up with myself because this seems kind of out of order. Just all flew in at once. Okay. These are the third-party platforms where you're going to have YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google+. YouTube and Twitter, I think, are absolute musts. If you're B2B, you want to do LinkedIn. If you're B2C, you want to do Facebook. Particularly emphasize those depending on where you're going. Doesn't mean you can't do them both. And then Google+, I think, is still a little bit dependent on what market, but it seems to be more up and coming across more markets. And then your major story platforms are Scoopit, Pinterest, and Storify. So in other words, every time we do a blog post, we repost those blog posts to the story platforms. And then we've also got your secondary social platforms, and this is where you can get as big and broad as you want to. You got personal branding like NameZ. You've got corporate branding where, you know, all of those directories where you can actually put your business. And then you've got, what I didn't put in there were your website branding ones where you actually, you know, the website directories where you can actually put your website. And then bookmark accounts. The WRS one, the social media, targets 6 and 7. So in other words, normally on the social media platforms, on the third-party platforms, you don't actually have a buy button. Doesn't mean that you can't. I know Facebook allows that. There are other places, Yahoo, eBay, that allow you to put in buy buttons. But if you have a money site that's on a domain that you own, then typically you don't have buy buttons on the social media sites. So what you do focus on those social media sites, the branded social media sites, is helping people determine which product they want and, again, providing social proof. And it's easy to provide social proof because you've usually got social conversations going on. So that's also where what Russ was talking about earlier, you have to do a little bit of reputation management, so that if somebody does complain on your Facebook page, you make sure that it's handled and resolved. All right. Your objectives when it comes to what it is that you're trying to do on the WRS1 site is personal branding, corporate branding, trust building, obviously communication. The social media, the third-party platforms are great places for two-way communications, whereas on the WR1 platforms, on the domains, they're more one-way communications. And then obviously you want to drive traffic to your WR1 money sites, and it's a great place to do indirect sales. So you're not actually doing a hard push sale, but you're doing indirect, more of a psychological pulling people to your money site and getting them to buy. And then last but not least, you're providing link juice into, you know, page rank juice into your WR1, and this happens both thematically as well as actual Google page rank juice. So my take on it is that if a site is going to drive you traffic, I look predominantly for a site that's going to drive traffic. I'm not so focused on whether or not there are no follow links or not, like that's superfluous to me. If they're going to drive traffic, then it's a good platform for me to have my stuff on. And if it's always going to provide me thematic link juice, and if it provides me PageRank link juice too, that's awesome. Like then that's just like everything in one kit and caboodle. Good, no questions yet. All right, so that's the WR1. Does anybody have any questions on the WR1 stuff before we move on to the WR2 stuff? Just gonna
Looks like we're good.
myself. Okay, good. So this is the second phase, all right? This is the hard launch. So at this point, by the time you've completed your soft launch, which can take anywhere from 30 days to 90 days, depending on how big your construct is, you know at that point that everything's working properly. You've all of your autoresponders are working properly. You've made sales. You know your customer service stuff is working properly. Everybody's getting all of the notifications that that they need to be getting, and you're watching all of your automated stuff. So like if you've set up feeds to your Twitter account and your Facebook account, you know that all that stuff is flowing through properly. And so now we're ready to actually move into hard launch with the idea that this is going to drive a whole lot more traffic. All right, so on the WR2, we've got registered domains. They're thematically related, and they're non-branded. We've got websites, we've got blogs, we've got forums, we've got wikis, and let me just, all of those things are going to be in our automated networks. So in other words, you can do all those things by hand, or you can push a button and do them all automated. I'm sorry, I'm just still so excited about this. We made major breakthroughs last night. I haven't slept, and I'm just having too much fun. Okay, anyway, back to the presentation. I'll try to be. Okay, so.
Control yourself.
I'm trying. I'm working on it. I've only had one cup of coffee.
No, you go, girl. You go for it.
All right, so let me pull my other slide up a little bit. All right, so this is going to, when we're here on the WR2s, obviously we don't have any buy buttons because these aren't our money sites. So what we're focused on here is helping people determine brands. So like this is the place where you would do comparisons. And because it's not on your money site, you can do some wicked comparisons, right? You can get away with stuff that you can't get away with on your money site. So you can do you can help people determine the brand by doing comparisons. You can help them determine the products by doing more comparisons, and you can have some social proof. And you can have social proof in a couple of different ways. Again, you can have you can go out and find what other people are saying and throw those on your WR2 sites. You've basically created personas who are evangelists, and so you can easily get them to say whatever you want them to say about your products. And you can spin all this stuff in the best possible light. And I'm not saying that like you fabricate stuff that's not true. It's just you have the opportunity to wax eloquent. So all of this kind of stuff happens on your domains on the WR2 site. Your objectives here are indirect marketing. You're not actually actively saying, you're not doing the direct marketing stuff, but the mere fact that you're providing all of this social proof kind of stuff is obviously indirect marketing. Social proof of brand, product, people. People, meaning you can talk about how great the people are in the company. And obviously you're going to drive traffic and link juice. Now, the WR2 sites can link to both your WRS1 and to your WR1 sites. So the really cool thing about this is if you follow the, what do you want to call it, the people who dole out particularly precise information about how many links you should have from any one particular domain to any other one particular domain, what you get to do, because you've magnified the number of properties that are basically your golden frame, You can have 50, 150, 200 properties in your WRS1 without too much difficulty, and you can have anywhere from 1 to, I don't know, gosh, we've got one certification student. I think she's going to have like 15 properties, something like that, in her WR1 by the time she's done. So, so you've got all of these different properties that you can link to. So when you've got any one particular domain that sits out here in your WR2, it can actually, it can put 3 or 4 links to each one of these different properties and effectively give your WR1 rings, both of them together, you can effectively give them, I don't know, maybe 1,000 inbound links collectively. So this makes your WR2 ring ever so much more effective. All right, now for your WRS2. There are going to be some aspects of your WRS2 that you're going to implement during your soft launch, in particularly your Twitter army. And this ring gets completely implemented during your hard launch. So your WR2 ring isn't implemented at all during soft launch, but I usually start my Twitter army during the soft launch process just so that I can get a wider reach on all of my blog posts or any of the other syndication that I've got going through. In other words, you take your feed from Pinterest and you take your feed from Storify and Scoop It and all those kinds of things. And you can pipe them all through your Twitter army. We can get into a lot more detail with that during the actual event. All right, so yes, the WRS2 is going to deal with third-party platforms. These are obviously non-branded platforms. Predominantly, you can do YouTube, but you have to be more careful with it than you needed to a few months ago. We can talk more about that in certification.
Yeah, it depends. We'll cover it, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the Twitter army that I just talked about, if you're going to have a persona in your WR2, then your persona can have a Google account, and it can have a YouTube, and it can have, I'm sure what's going to come up here is, yeah, it can basically have all of the same things that your actual branded account has, right? And so it can even have a Facebook page if you want it to. I don't think I would recommend a LinkedIn page just because it's kind of a different class. But so your persona can have all of these accounts, and it can own that website/website blog combo in the WR2 ring, and then that becomes that's actually a really cool thing because it becomes a much more substantial persona because it's got a social media status. What I really recommend, and again we'll talk a little bit more about this as we get on toward networks toward the end of the certification event, but what I would really recommend is the aspects of, like, for example, each silo on your money site gets mirrored out into its own domain on the WR2 site, and those particular sites that get mirrored like that should really be the ones that have a persona. If nobody else has a persona, each one of those silos should have a persona. All right. And they can have a series of bookmarks account, basically an only wire type thing. All right, so what you're trying to do on the WRS2 level is broad social proof, brand determination, and product determination. So it doesn't get so much into the specifics. You leave the specifics more for the inner rings, but you're kind of in that middle level. All right, your objectives here, again, are indirect marketing, social proof, driving traffic, and driving page rank. All right, so now we get into the outer ring, WR3. Now this is a fascinating place. We've got some really cool things that we do in the WR3. This is implemented during market domination, so this is phase 3. This is usually someplace between 90 days to 6 months after you've started your initial campaign. sometimes it takes a little bit longer. It all depends on how long it takes to get your money sites up. Um, Obviously, the WR3, again, are going to be your registered domains. They're not branded. They typically don't have personas either. They're going to be more tangent themes than some of the stuff that you've got going on in the WRS2 level or the WR2 level. And this ring is going to consist predominantly of websites and blogs with a few forums. What we try to do, what we target here is that initial inquiry stuff. So we're talking really broad stuff, initial inquiry and product discovery and broad social proof. Our objectives here are brand building, social proof, driving traffic, and driving page rank. Now here we're going to drive page rank to the WR2 levels, WR2, WRS2. All right, and then for the final ring, the WRS3, this gets partially implemented during the hard launch, again, mostly with your Twitter stuff. And it gets fully implemented during market domination. These obviously are going to be third-party platforms. They're not branded again. And the only thing we really do out here at this level is OnlyWire and Twitter legions. If you had a Twitter army here, then you've got multiple armies which constitute legions out here, right? So this can be, like, the scale depends completely on the size of your market. So, for example, a couple of the ladies who are coming to this certification, they're dealing with the art market. And they're dealing with like PageRank 3, PageRank 4 is their main competition. And it doesn't have a huge social footprint. So they don't need a huge network. They don't need a huge Twitter legion. They're going to be good if they get into that mid-size. They'll completely dominate the market. They'll obliterate the market if they end up with a mid-size network and a mid-size Twitter army. On the other hand, if I were going to take on a major brand like, I don't know, Sony or Coca-Cola or something like that, well then, you know, you pull out all the stops. I might even do a fourth ring on that. So, but the fourth ring would be the third ring just multiplied again out one more time. Okay, so that was a lot. Let me just see, we've got a couple more slides left. This particular ring, we're going to target steps 1, 2, and 3, that initial inquiry, the product discovery, and the broad social proof. And our objectives here, pretty much the same as the WR2 level. We want to build the brand, we want to build social proof, we want to drive traffic. All right, so in summary, what we talked about today was the slippery slope, how it relates to the buying cycle, all the different aspects of the sales funnel. I thought it was really interesting when we had the slippery slope up there. If you remember, it kind of looks like half of a sales funnel. And then we introduced the purpose of each of the rings and the sales funnel and the buying cycle, how they all relate to each other. Anybody have any questions on any of that? You guys have been really quiet today, I'm afraid.
Okay, let's see what we have going on here. How does the connection between how do you know where in the buying cycle, how does the connection between the buying cycle and the web rings, like how are they going to know which part of the buying cycle they are? Is there an association to the buying cycle for each web ring, or can it be any or all of that?
It can be any or all of it. I mean, as I said, if you go back through the slides, that we had specific steps in that buying cycle that were predominant for particular aspects. But so like the further out in the ring you are, the further out in the buying cycle you are. So like when you're in WR3, WRS3 land, you're at those more initial phases of finding out information. And realize that all the way through all of your rings, your content from your money site gets curated all the way out. So what they're going to do on those outer levels is that they're going to find snippets, they're going to find your primary keywords, they're going to find keywords that you're not actually using on your money site. So they might come in through different avenues, to find out about your product. So it's usually initial inquiry, and then as they get more into understanding your product and they go to look deeper, they've got keywords that are more particular to your product. So then that along with obviously the links on the site are going to lead them further into the further into the funnel and further into the further into the buying cycle. The other thing that you want to do, and we'll talk more about this, but you want to have the opportunity for them to somehow get into your funnel, right? So whether it's signing up for your newsletter or getting an RSS feed, those things that you do, what Russ was talking about really early there in the slippery slope, you want to have those things available further out in your web rings so that they've got a way to actually get into your funnel and get fed information on a regular basis.
Yep. And I would also add, just, you answered the question, how much content you need in WR2, WR3, right?
I didn't really. I didn't see the question, so it wasn't intentional.
That's actually kind of what I was going to get into. Here's an interesting thing, Kevin. It's kind of strange, actually, which is why we have to create the one web ring to rule them all kind of integrated step-by-step system. If you have, it's not really as much about content anymore as it is about social proof. And we have three factors. Okay, we have PageRank, we have traffic being driven upstream from your downstream sites. And when I say downstream, I mean away from ground zero. I mean in your outer rings. So when we look at it vertically, the outer rings are downstream.
Right.
Okay, when you're looking at it, okay? And so I don't want to confuse people, and we're actually doing more and more marketing to give exact diagrams like this because, you know, I'll come up with a new name for something every 3 minutes. So I'm trying to make really sure that everybody understands because it's incredibly powerful. You're looking at just the movement of energy of PageRank. We want PageRank to move back upstream towards ground zero, which is your money sites, where the most compelling, unique, interesting, and innovative ISDNA call to actions will exist. Okay, we want to get the PageRank helping those sites become buoyant.
Right.
We want the traffic to be driving itself back upstream based on downstream repurposed content, links, Twitter shredding, scooping, content curation. Many are the ways. Don't get us started. Come to our event, right?
Right. We will talk about a lot of this stuff in the event.
But that's not the point here. I'm giving you as Bucky Fuller said, the generalist will rule the world. You know, one of the quotes that he said in his latter life. It's actually quite true because we're giving you a generalist overview of a broad spectrum of how you need to set your empire up. The default, the real issue, which we cannot help you with directly, is product, services, and innovations. Okay, in other words, what you bring to the table as a company or service and your unique positioning and understanding the conversation in the market, its dilemma, its pains, its fears, its concerns, we can help you organize that. But really where the true entrepreneur or business person is going to make or break, can make $1 billion with one of these empires we're talking about, or they can make 25 cents. Okay, if they don't have it right. And that is creating the right invention or doing business, you know, getting into a relationship with something that's distinct, that's timely, that's innovative, and that directly solves a problem and is a painkiller of one kind or another, or is positioned as a painkiller in a market with enough distinction that it's easy when the content and the discussions and the language, when it moves downstream, leads to conversions upstream. So that's why we call it the ISDNA. The ISDNA, the innovative solution, the industry solution that you come up with, that's where your own personal genius, your own personal business skills, coming up with products and services. However, I would also say that there is a science to coming up with unbelievably excellent products. When you know that distinction and authority matters, you will go for a distinction in products and you won't really look for or invent products that everybody else is doing. These are called commodities, right?
Right.
So these are the things that we don't get into as much, but in the ISDNA process, we've had several people when Sue and I are giving these events where they go, oh, wow. And after drilling into using Kraken to drill in, they understand even more that they're going for commodities and that we don't even recommend, Sue's probably got her own number for this, but if you're getting into commodities or something that everybody else has, or you're doing big bulk stuff, or you're a distributor house or a wholesale house or a buyer's club, the way you do business with those is a little bit kind of different branding because you're going for volume. And generally speaking, you need a lot more money up front for operations, stocking, manufacturing, and delivery. So these are all business skills, which we actually do take into account in Domain Web Studio in the business decision screen and so on and so forth. But it also speaks to your question, Kevin, which is how do you, if you have multiple products, how do you deal with it, right? And that is bundling. And we'll talk a lot about bundling. Even wholesale houses, like one of the accounts that I worked on, for example, take David Wolf's company that was really struggling. I did a brief consultation with this company, and there's something like 80,000 whole foods and natural foods products on that, and they couldn't understand why they weren't making any sales. And you hit the page, there's nothing really siloed, not only siloed for SEO, which to me is secondary, but I'm just a guy who's starting with raw foods. What do I buy? There was no even indication about why it's unique, distinct, innovative, and
right.
Holy mackerel! Just give me David Wolf. Tell me what to buy.
Right.
Give me a box that says David Wolf recommends on it. Fine, quick, because I got to go to the next website. I'm a busy guy.
Right.
So this is what we're really dealing with. Bundling is directly related to what you find in Kraken, and Kraken will actually lead you to determine what the pains in the ISDNA combined with Kraken research and market demographics will help you determine how you should bundle. And then the bundle itself may end up either replacing, enhancing, or reconstructing a particular silo landing page that you have. And then suddenly you actually start making money, God forbid.
Exactly.
And I got to tell you guys that when David Wolf added actual bundles, I mean, for him it was like he couldn't believe it was simple as that. He thought, I have 80,000 products. Don't people want choices? And I hope you guys know they definitely do not want choices.
No.
Very, very few people really want tons of choices when it comes to a specific category and niche. Amazon's an exception because now Amazon is a reference wholesale Costco.
But even Amazon, you hit any page on Amazon and even they do not overload you with choices. They hide most
Correct.
of those choices away.
They have, exactly. And they have pure distinction. So I know it's kind of crazy, but what we'll end up doing with most people's ISDNA is it becomes clear how to set the product. And again, there's more than one way to set all this up, but hopefully this makes the clarification of how much content do you need. Well, Sue answers that based on PageRank. I answer that based on conversion, and I say 147 characters is how much content you need.
Yeah, it's not too far from that.
But for PageRank, Sue's got a whole calculation on this as well. And in fact, we've been talking about it for the stuff that I'm not supposed to mention, which I'm excited about.
Well, you can talk about it. This is a closed group, but
oh, it is closed, right? Like the automated, like the cloaking stuff, and the other things that we're working with.
Yep. So
what is the content that you recommend for PageRank?
Okay, so here's the thing. Like when you've done your ISDNA, when you know what the painkiller questions are, you've got all these keywords, all of these really choice keywords. What you're going to do is you're going to find the authorities in the field, the non-competitive authorities in the field. You're going to grab their feeds. You're going to use that for content. You're going to do Google Alerts, and you're going to grab that for content, and all of that stuff starts to populate your WR2 and your WR3 sites. So you've got your content, which is the featured content on the page, and then you're filling up the page with a mashup of other people's content. And the cool thing about that, using Google Alerts and things like that, is that you've constantly got all of the newsy stuff, all of the stuff that people are asking questions about, coming across your thematically related pages. So when somebody types in a particular question that's on the tip of the mind, on the consumer's mind at the moment, they're going to find your sites, they're going to hit your sites, they're going to see your featured content, which is related to their question, and they're going to click through to your money site and buy your product. So
exactly.
The content you need becomes much more manageable. It's just, all you really have to do is feed your blog, and your blog feeds everything else.
It's crazy stuff. Like, even speaking to what Sue said, she's very conscious about PageRank and all this other stuff, which is the PageRank factor. I've got stuff that's completely got out of hand. In fact, I'm looking at it right now on the big screen. It's completely out of hand. It's a disease-based automated Facebook page with an average of 10 posts, video posts updated per day. I got 4 questions of screaming sick people who want to buy a heating pad. I don't even have time to answer it. Okay, so I have to email the person who's responsible for this.
We lost your audio, Russ.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
At what point did you lose me?
Okay, you have to email the person.
Of course, I have to email the client whose business is really, that she doesn't have her business organized enough to deal with this traffic that I'm generating, and you don't want to let those things sit because those are what you call indirects. Those are indirect products based on videos that have been auto-curated to an automated Facebook fan page that are pseudo-directly related. I don't even agree with the content, but they raise good questions.
Right.
And then the people are asking, they're just basically saying, help this, there's pain, this, that, And then finally, my client had to create a standard Facebook PM, private message response to the anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen people that private message from what they obviously do not even necessarily know is an automated curated fan page. I mean, it's just one example of how to do WRS2 automation. And then when it gets into the actual posting of platforms that are our own, as far as like the Google Alerts and these what we call RSS curation, it's a similar thing. I mean, you're driving content back to the site, except the platforms that they're on are your own. And I really like both of those working in conjunction together. In fact, here's another weird trip. A lot of the traffic that I get to the automated fan page is just people asking painkiller questions from content that I didn't even create, mostly videos. They're coming into the Facebook fan page through a like box that's located at the bottom of every post on these automated blogs. And it doesn't matter if these blogs are video blogs. It doesn't matter if they're content blogs. I mean, Sue's got like umpteen different kinds of designs we're playing around with right now and testing them. But the cool thing is all that traffic and neurosis and pain and question get driven upstream. The challenge that your clients are going to have is to be able to follow up and understand the difference between these layers. And then you got to determine, obviously, if it's appropriate or not for your particular business model to have these types of environments. It's just a question of determining, how you want to deal with, the traffic and how you want to respond to people inquiring. It's kind of fun stuff, if you really look at it.
It's great. It's really
Cool.
great. So
Yeah,
I want to show you one thing. You were talking a few minutes ago about bundles, and this is something.
Oh yeah.
So Northland Express is one of our clients at the moment, right? And and they've been talking to me about mosquito control since we started with this. Actually, since before we started with them, and it was only a couple of weeks ago that I found out that on some obscure page on their website, they've actually got this 4-step process for controlling mosquitoes, which conveniently uses 4 of their most expensive products. And I'm like, holy goo-goo-goo-goo, guys, this is what everybody is looking for, right? It kills mosquitoes at every step of the mosquito life. So you combine all 4 of these concepts and you're as mosquito-free as you can possibly be without a scream. So I'm like, this needs to come out of this basement page that you've got it on in your site. We need to make a PDF, and we need to basically move it into that entire downstream concept that Russ is talking about. We need to proliferate this through all of the different layers on all of our different platforms. And so we drilled into mosquito control. We found like the top 50 keywords for mosquito control, and this is going to be our new campaign. So for the next 2 or 3 months, we're going to target all of these keywords. This PDF is going to be the featured content for all of those keywords, but we're going to bring in all of these, everybody else's pain and question and all of the Google alerts and all of the other things for all of these keywords, and throw them all onto pages so that we can sell the system. So that's one example of how you can bundle your products to make a painkiller solution to something that takes it out of the commodity, right? This is no longer just one of these products. They're no longer doing the same thing that all their competitors are doing. This is not a system that you're going to find on Amazon, which is one of their main competitors at the moment. They've lost so much money to Amazon. So you just kind of got to think outside the box if you're in this kind of a situation where you're selling commodities, you have to think outside the box so that you're solving pains beyond that particular commodity.
Absolutely.
All right. Is that enough? Are you guys ready for certification now?
Yes, excited to be there. Can't wait. Yeah, I'll answer that question later. That's too complicated.
All right.
So yeah, okay. I think we're going to wrap it up, guys, because I've got to get ready to
Bags are
move
packed.
my office back into our Mesa office. So really looking forward to this. If you have any questions, needs, or concerns, please do contact us via email. But otherwise, I think most of you are set.
Yep.
And we have a lot of our tools and equipment coming in that are extras for the event tomorrow, and Sue's dealing with that. So we're looking forward to intimate 5-6 day. It's actually 6 days.
6 days. Yeah.
Six-day event with each one of you. Oh, here's an opportunity for those of you who are here. Please do bring your data. Okay. In other words, obviously you can log into the software that you have with us for the data. Make sure you bring things like your RSS feeds. Okay. It would be great if you don't have to like hunt around for them. And again, you might have time to look at some of that, you know, in the evenings when you're resting or here resting. Yeah.
Resting. I bought a new set of whips, people.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know, make sure that you just, you know, have a general idea of where everything is located. Your RSS feeds particularly. That's something that people fumble around with for a few hours. So kind of have all the RSS feeds, the general RSS feeds, and maybe make a small attempt to kind of, in your own mind, put out, if you do have a web network or you do have the sites that you're bringing, just kind of, you know, in your mind, put them on the map somewhere in those web rings if you had to. And if you have questions and it's not 100% clear, that's all right. Just, you know, spitball it, you know, in your mind, you know, stick them somewhere on that range so that we can talk about your strategies. All right, you guys. This is Russell Wright and Stu Bell from Network Empire Certification. I can't wait to see you guys, and we'll talk to you in just a few days.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited. See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.